Welcome to Evolution Business Development. I'm Isis Latham, your host, and it's my pleasure today to introduce you to Rita Desnoyers Garcia. And Rita has been helping women reach their true potential for over 30 years. Since 2009, she's been working with stressed out professional moms who want harmony at home and to rock their careers, but really struggle with trying to control everything and please everyone. Rita helps them to get to the root causes of their stress and overwhelm and to alleviate with effective yet simple tools and strategies. They then can address their parenting, marriage, business, and/or health and enjoy their lives. She also is an author of The Self-Compassion Project, performs as an amateur stand-up comedian, a musician, and cook. Most recently, she's been teaching moms stand-up comedy so that they can create a more fun relationship with life. You can find out more about Rita and her offerings at becomingawake.com. She lives with her husband and 3 children in New Jersey. Well, welcome, Rita. What a great way to introduce you. Do you, what was it? What I was thinking of? Oh gosh, I just lost where I was. It was so funny when you said, something about, you kind of like pretending or something that you're a cook.
It's
And
all
I don't,
pretending. Yeah.
it must have been in my own head because, when I became a mom and a wife, I was like, oh gosh, I gotta cook food. Why do I have to do this? I was one of those people that would have preferred to, just have a salad and have some fruit and nothing really needed to be prepared. You just cut it up and you ate it, right?
I think some of the best meals are just that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I hear
exactly.
you.
That's been my taste too. But then I had children and I started to have to like cook and mash things and make it palatable and yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how 30 years ago, it doesn't seem possible that you've been doing this work this long, but what did that transition and journey look like for you?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on today and meeting everyone in this group. It feels like a really supportive group, so you've created something really special here.
Thank you.
How did I get into this wacky business? So I was before I was even a mom, I was graduated as a social worker, went to Columbia social work school. So I worked with all different populations, and I really just had an affinity and a real interest in working with women, really reaching the potential. And you don't have to be Freud to know it was all about me trying to reach my own potential, right? So I did a lot of different work with a lot of different groups. Then I got married and had children and had this social work degree, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. So I kind of put it to the side and I started doing different side businesses. I was doing a cooking class, a Mexican cooking class in my kitchen at one point when I was like 9 months pregnant with my second kid. And then after my third child, because I wasn't busy enough, I decided to start my own home business selling essential oils. I was really into these essential oils and I thought, wow, this could really help a lot of people, but I don't know how to market them. So I took a marketing course and I was literally nursing children while I was taking the marketing course on the phone. And I would make cold phone calls. I would had a list and I would call people. If anyone's ever done that, it's not for the weak of heart, okay? It takes a lot and you get a lot of rejection, a lot of hangups, a lot of like, yeah, well, how did I get on your list and all that stuff. And after a while, I started developing like all these physical symptoms, like a cough, which is really not great when you're trying to market health and wellness products. If you're coughing through your presentation, doesn't sell very well. My husband would ask me, are you having fun? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally having fun. But really, I wasn't having fun. I was trying to save my family. I was trying to retire my husband because I thought that's what we needed to do to have a happy family in my mind. But really, what I was doing was I was kind of making everyone miserable because I was working too hard. And I was coming from a place of fear of failure, really, a lot of fear. And one day I realized that in a company phone call that I was not doing what I needed to do. And if I didn't start closing clients, it was going to implode. Like it just wasn't going to exist anymore. And I remember we were in a phone call. I muted the phone. I started to cry, and I just sat on the floor crying. And then my kids started to cry, and all of these beliefs came up. The stuff that I was keeping under the water, right? You know how like you take a beach ball and you try to put it under the water and you sit on the beach ball and you're kind of like this. Well, I had lost balance and that beach ball was coming up. And the beach ball was about, you don't know what you're doing. You always quit things after 6 months. You're a failure. You're a terrible mother. You're a terrible businesswoman. You've lost everyone's respect. All of that, that you're trying not to deal with. But that was, even though it sucked in that moment, I realized it was a big turning point in my life because it put me in a position of being desperate enough to actually being open to a different way of living my life. And that day, I reached out to this guy who wrote a book about beliefs called The Power of Belief by Ray Dodd. And he had a whole bunch of coaches that did coaching based on his book. So I picked the one that had a business background because I thought if I could just close people, I'll be happy. I was still very much in the mentality of like, if I could just get this business going, then everything would fit into place. And I met with him, and one of the first things he said to me was, right now, can you just be kind and gentle with yourself? And I thought, what's the point of that? I don't get it, right? Why would I want to have a pity party? I don't understand what you're saying. But because I'm also like a good student, I decided, I'll try. I'll give it a try. And for 30 seconds, I decided to just focus on being kind and gentle with myself. And I realized I wasn't beating myself up anymore. I'd like stopped hitting my head against the wall. And I was just literally focusing on being kind and gentle. And I wasn't all the terrible things that I thought I was. Like those beliefs, those underlying core beliefs had just kind of faded. And it felt so good. It was such a relief that I started to cry because it was like the lack of pain, right? And from then I thought, all right, this guy has made me cry. I got to work with him now because he's hitting something, right? He's my Barbara Walters, right? Remember Barbara Walters, she always got someone to cry. And that was like the best part of the interview. So I worked with him for 4 years on the phone, all about my beliefs. And I realized that my beliefs really created my life, my perceptions of my life, everyone around me, how I felt about things, what I thought was possible or impossible. And I took a step back from what I was doing in my business. And I fell in love with it so much that I went, wow, I got to share this. This is like changing my life. So I contacted a couple of my girlfriends because everyone was walking around. I was like, a mother of 3 young children. And I was surrounded by mothers of young children walking around like zombies, really, caffeinated zombies, with their baby Bjorns and everything. No one looked particularly happy. Reached out to them, and 3 of them said, yeah, I'd love to know what you're doing. And I started my first group. So although I had been working with women for years and years in social work, this was like another new whole chapter. And this was in the 2000s, early 2000s, 2007, 2008. And right around that time, I'd seen The Secret, so I kind of knew about like the law of attraction and things like that. I had a kind of like semi-knowledge of that, and I started getting into all sorts of energy work and stuff. So all of these kind of things started appearing to me, and I started experimenting. And I did coaching like that for years and years and years. And then I just burnt out. In like 2017, I burnt out because I didn't know it at the time, but my belief was my success is based on what my client does. I got to make sure they get better or else I'm a failure. Once again, that failure came up in another form, right? So I was just like, I need to take, some time off. I just can't deal with other people's junk right now. And I thought, what do I want to do? And this stand-up comedy course came up in my vision, so to speak. It was being taught at the local adult school, and I was terrified. I thought, I want to take this, but I'm like terrified. And I thought, that's my sweet spot. You want to do something, but it terrifies you, you got to do it. So I signed up for it, and it was, it was super low key. It was not like I was going to do an HBO special. It was literally in the middle school of my town, in the health classroom, which is the perfect classroom to teach comedy because you're surrounded by like, female reproductive organ diagrams and, all sorts of, drug information. You're like, this is comedy. And I learned just sort of the basics of how you construct a joke, what's funny, what's not funny, how to make things funnier. And there were 9 of us, and at the end, you had a show. And so we went to a comedy club, and we did this show, and I was panicked and I was terrified, and I thought, what the hell have I gotten myself into? This is a really bad idea. And I got up there and I did my set, and people laughed, and I was like, this is like almost as good as my wedding day. This is unbelievable. And I got off stage and I went to the back of the club to just like decompress. And this woman came up to me and she said, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids just like you do. I never get out of the house. I came to see my friend for support, but I got to tell you, I laughed so hard at what you were saying, I almost peed my pants. And I thought, don't you know what you need to wear a panty shield? You've had 3 children. Come on. Just basic knowledge. But it never occurred to me that what I was doing was going to help anybody else. It was really, I did it all for myself. I just got to do this thing that's scaring me. And I realized, wow, this really helps people. This woman got a release in all sorts of forms. It made her laugh at her life, how ridiculous things can get, right? And it changed just a little bit, changed her relationship to it. So I started doing comedy, where I could in all the sort of amateur spots. And I started co-producing shows in my town with all these other amateur comedians, mostly moms. And then I kind of went back to coaching when all the lockdown stuff happened and people were like freaked out. All of the performance stuff stopped. All of the live performance stopped. And I thought, maybe people just need coaching now. And then a year and a half in, once people were starting to be a little more like, okay, I think we can be together again, I started to do shows again and producing shows with all these women. And one of the women in the show had never done comedy before, but I just kind of like nurtured her along, and she did great. A few months after that, she said, I really had a good time doing that. Would you ever consider teaching this? I have girlfriends, I have a space. I'm like, all right, if you're going to give it to me on a silver platter, I'll do it. So I did a class in her house. We had the show in her house. It was ISIS. It was magical. Because all these women every week would come in like, you're not going to believe what happened this week. Oh my God. A bunch of life stuff, like big, heavy life stuff happened for a lot of these women in the 6 weeks we worked together. But each time they left laughing, they left lighter. I would immediately say, just get behind the mic and tell us what happened. And then they would just go into a routine and everyone would be laughing at the end. And then we did the show, and that was like another level of, I can't believe I just did that. What else can I do that I haven't considered before? Oh my God, this is amazing. And I asked them to write testimonials. And what they said was, this was transformational. This taught me that all the things that drive me crazy, all the challenges, all the obstacles that I am like resentful about, or don't know why they're happening, or why is this happening again, is just fodder. It's just material about how life can be really absurd. And you could laugh or you cry. Either way, you're going to release something. But isn't it more fun to laugh sometimes? It changed their relationship to life itself. And I've noticed in my business, more people are coming into the comedy than they were doing the coaching. And I thought, I think I'm onto something here that's very unique and frankly, really fun. And my mantra for the last 3 years has been, if I had fun, I won. So it just became, now it's more of a cornerstone of what I do. How can we laugh at life? How can we look at this in a different way? How can we turn it on its head? How can we see it as Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory? Because that's what we're all doing, basically, right? We're all trying to keep up with the pace. we don't know what we're doing. We're surprised. The rug has been pulled out from underneath us. There are expectations. So we start stuffing things down our shirt and we're eating them and it's cuckoo. We're all just trying to figure that out. And of course, there are solutions to those things, like maybe you don't do that job, or maybe you can stop the conveyor belt a little bit. But if you can laugh at it, then all these things open up for you. All different options you've never thought of. Use a different part of your brain. You're not in fight, flight, and freeze anymore. You're in a more logical part of your brain. You can solution orient. You're making friends with the universe, if you will, and saying, okay, I'm in this situation. How do I get out of it?
Well, it's
There's
the
got to be another
old
way.
statement, don't take yourself so seriously, or don't take it so seriously.
Yes.
And there's this constant push and pull between that, because people who are not serious enough, we start to develop these beliefs around them.
Yes.
And people who are too serious, we develop these beliefs around
Yes.
them. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I figured it out afterwards, by the way. It was the statement of being an amateur stand-up comedian, and then you said musician and cook. And so
That's right. I haven't opened a restaurant yet.
the
Yeah.
idea of being an amateur cook, I think, was what resonated with me.
I should go professional after, cooking for my 3 kids for all those years.
Right?
But
Yeah, I know. Well, I love your journey, and I love how you've woven it in and out, and it reminds me so deeply of that everybody has a story to tell.
yeah.
And their story is their own, and we have a choice how we want to tell it. Do we want to tell it as the misery of what we've been living? Oh, another day, another dollar, right? We got to start this all over again. Or do we choose to tell it as the, kind of magical or mystical or humorous, right? And it's best when that story has all of that. It's the triumphant moment where you overcome, but you can't overcome if you don't have something challenging. And so what you're describing is we all have comedy. We all have a set that's living inside of us. We just don't necessarily know how to present it in a way that kind of moves beyond the data points and into here's the fun of it. This is the story. That's great. I love that. And I admit, comedy, that was not something I understood for a long time. And I had to come to terms with, I think I might be a little too serious and not apt to smile, not apt to laugh because of my own beliefs, right? You mentioned your fear of failure. Well, I was fearful of not being seen as somebody that was sophisticated and capable, because inside I had all of those belief systems that said, oh, I don't know if I really am. So how do you take somebody who is experiencing them and help them to draw that out and find the humor in it? Because I think we do tend to take ourselves too seriously, and we see ourselves stuck in the midst of it. When you were talking about, big life stuff was happening to them. How did you help them to recognize that it was okay to make humor in that moment, even though, right, some of the big life stuff is like people in pain and losing jobs and moving homes or losing partners. I mean, like that's big stuff, and it is hard for most of us to find humor.
Well, first of all, I would say in terms of teaching stand-up comedy, people self-select. So if someone is not open to being funny, they're not going to, and I'm not going to ask them to be in my course.
Right.
Right? So someone who's kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of funny. I'd like to be funnier, or I'd like to have this experience. So they're open in that way. Because there's time and place. My husband would tell me, he would agree with me to say, Rita is the queen of inappropriate timing. Sometimes I'm just like, oops, I probably shouldn't have said that one. But sometimes it's worth it, frankly. But
they call me inappropriate ISIS in my house sometimes.
Right, exactly. Like, know the crowd. but if someone comes into the course being open to it, one of the things we talk about is like, what's the hardest part of your day? You
Mm.
know, what seems the most ridiculous to you that you have to put up with? You know, um, what seems over the top to you? Uh, like one woman in a recent student was talking about this like comedy of errors she experienced going in Costco, where she had a limited amount of time. It was for this thing that she thought was really important. She forgot her Costco card. She used the wrong credit card. She bought all the things she didn't even want, hoping to find the one thing that they were out of. It was sort of like that kind of thing. And she's telling the story and she's all hyped up, but you could tell she's like, but I want to write a routine about this. I want to take this thing that was so ridiculously frustrating and make it something funny. And her just telling it with the heightened emotion was hilarious. We were all laughing. And then she realized, oh my God, I could have just ordered that on Amazon. Like, why did I do this? Why do I do this to myself? And we're all laughing. So that's sort of part of it, is sharing it with other people that get it. Like, because these are all moms too, so they kind of get, you're in a time crunch, you're trying to do this, you got the babysitter, you're trying to do 5 things at once because you've got this pressure on yourself. So that's the other thing, is like discovering that your beliefs are so high bar that you're never going to hit them, but you keep trying.
Yep.
And like, why am I doing this? Why am I carrying all that?
And that relevance, right? Where we have commonalities is often where we find the humor, because we've all done that. We've all gone to the store, bought everything we didn't need, left and gone home, and then realized that we didn't have the one thing that we had actually gone out for. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
how do people, you've mentioned that you're all these different areas that you're working in. So somebody who just wants to be around Rita, right? You're funny, you're vivacious, you're the kind of person that they want to be in space with. How do they do that? How do they get in your community?
So there's a couple ways. One is you could just go to my website, sign up for my freebie, you'll be on my list. Contact me on my website. Um, Also, I have a Facebook group called Calm Mom Alliance, which is really tips, tricks, strategies, hacks about how to make your life easier and so that you feel a little more calm through your day. And I have a ton of practitioners also in that group, so that if you need financial help or nutritional help, there's someone in the group who's going to be able to, get hooked up with.
Yeah.
So that's another great way. And then they can always follow me on social media. I got a TikTok. I can't believe I'm on TikTok, by the way, but that's business. I'm on TikTok. I'm on, what's it called? Instagram there,
Yeah.
Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those, all the places.
Great. And somebody who's saying, okay, I want to work with this woman. How do they work with you? What are the offerings that you have?
Sure. So, like this Friday at 10 a.m., I'm doing a 90-minute free workshop called the Happier Life 90-Day Plan. It's also called I'll Have What She's Having, which is just, I want to change something in my life, but I don't quite do it. How
Yeah.
do I create a plan that's supportive and doable for myself so I can get that done? I also do, what else do I do? So I do workshops periodically. I do classes starting January 14th. I'm doing a virtual stand-up comedy class for moms.
Oh, you are going to do it.
I
Great.
am. I have some technological help to support me so that we can do a show on Zoom. So that starts, yeah, January 14th.
How
Yeah, and that's
exciting.
on my website, under events.
And are you still doing one-on-one coaching, or is that a thing of the past?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, on my website, if you go to services, you'll see I have a program called um, One Happy Mother. I have another one called One Free Mama. And then the comedy course is called One Funny Mother.
That's awesome. Well, you are a funny mother. We
Thank you.
appreciate you. And as you said, if we can laugh at it, we can deal with it. And so we're going to be moving over to our mastermind. So if you've been listening to this and you're thinking, I want to connect with these amazing people, it's not just for the mothers, but we're a group that welcomes all business owners, nonprofits, and even civic-minded individuals as well. And we meet on Wednesdays at noontime. So we hope we see you here. Well, thank you, Rita, for being with us today. Thank you for the mastermind that's coming up and for all of your energy and laughter that you bring to us. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Isis.
Thank you.